Welcome, everybody. This is Interesting Times, the podcast with yours truly, Gideon Evans, and
Matt Moses. That's me.
Wow, our intros are much smoother now. I feel like
getting good.
We have them down. I think that's like the first 10 seconds of the show. Now we have to focus on the bottom half, the bottom 35 minutes or 30 minutes.
Right, the like 98%,
Right.
99%.
We'll get it. I think the intro is the hardest part, though, right?
In some ways, yes.
No. Yes.
Yes, that as well. No.
Let's just say yes.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's
to
why
make
I said
us
yes.
feel better. All right. Well, before we start, before the clip, I just want to acknowledge that OJ Simpson died, and that was kind of shocking.
Yeah, because you kind of forgot about OJ.
I mean, that's part of it. Also, it's like, as we get older, I kind of forget that the people older than us are much, they're getting closer to death, too.
I know.
Yeah. But I forgot that I didn't realize he was like upper 70s. I mean, I figured he was older, but I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was sick, and I'm sure the lifestyle he led wasn't too great.
The stress of murdering people.
And hunting people down who stole like sports memorabilia. Remember that?
I do. I still don't quite understand that situation, but
that was like the universe meting out justice.
It felt like it. Yeah.
I mean, quick story, if you don't mind.
Please.
I mean, I worked with Michael Moore. Remember, I talked about him a little bit. The rabble-rouser. You knew that, right?
Yes.
Anyway,
just because,
Michael Moore did a pilot back in the day for Fox. It was a talk show pilot, and it didn't go anywhere after the initial tapings. But one of the tapings, the guests were Sheryl Crow. I think Molly Shannon was a guest, maybe somebody else. But there was in the middle of the taping, Michael's like, we have a third guest. And everybody's like, really? And he's like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome OJ Simpson. And people clap just reflexively. And then OJ Simpson walks out in person. This is after the murder and the trial. And Michael always said that he thought OJ didn't do it, and then later he was like, well, maybe he didn't do it personally, but he hired a hitman. Anyway, he invited him on the show, didn't tell anybody he was coming out. The audience didn't know, and people were went bananas. It was the craziest atmosphere. The audience went, they revolted, and people had brought books for Michael to sign, and they threw the books on the floor. It was just the craziest thing, and they just did this long crazy interview where the audience asked questions. And anyway, it's it never aired. But
wow. Did you say who hosted it? Was there a singular
host? It was Michael Moore was the host.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a pilot. That's all right. I
think of him as a director sometimes.
No, he was the host. And you know who was in the audience? Rory Lance, our theater high school director. I had invited him. I was I'm doing this goofy show. You want to? And he was at the end of it, he was that was the craziest shit I've ever seen.
And it didn't get picked up, or
No, it didn't. It was.
It sounds like. I don't. Yeah, it sounds like good TV.
I mean, it would have gotten a lot of viewers if it was actually on TV.
Should I be surprised that Michael Moore didn't think he did it? I just was looking at just the Wikipedia page about the case. And, I had watched the TV miniseries, which was so great a couple years ago.
I didn't see it.
I feel like when you see... Oh, it was good. But I feel like when you read all the evidence, it really is I don't know, it would be hard to see him not having done it.
Well, also, he beat up his wife. I mean,
right, exactly. He beat up his wife. There was footprint evidence. There was a glove at the scene with his blood on it, and a glove found at his home with his blood on it, and DNA blood found on his car.
Yeah,
and and then of course, he beat his wife terribly, and it was she thought he was gonna kill her. I'd said that to the cops at one point. So anyway, there's so much evidence behind it. It would have to have been this massive conspiracy to have not been him, I think.
And do you remember where you were? It's one of those things where it's you remember where you were.
I was going to tell you. Well, I was at Murrow. I was at our high school, and I remember I was passing by the what's it called? The like this TV studio, Term Television, right. Edward R. Murrow, right. And they had like a TV out in like a display, I guess, that would show I guess they would put on, I don't know, CNN or probably local news. They didn't have cable, I doubt. But anyway, so and I just remember them announcing it, and people had been gathered around, and I remember the black kids getting really excited and cheering, wow. And I just didn't even get it. I was like, right. Oh, it didn't even occur to me, like, oh, because he's black. Like, I didn't, but I also didn't have strong feelings about it. I was like, oh, I think I kind of heard he probably did it, but I didn't, I wasn't reading the news or anything.
Right.
Anyway, but I
But that was nighttime, so you were at the school for a play or something?
Oh, wait, when the verdict was announced?
No, I'm not talking about the verdict. I'm sorry. I was talking about the slow chase. Sorry.
Oh, the slow chase I actually do remember also. Then I was at my girlfriend at the time's house.
Oh, wow. In Brooklyn?
And in Brooklyn, yeah. And we got to, like, hang out in her bedroom. The door was supposed to be open. But I remember we were watching that, and it was just, I don't know. I didn't know what to make of it.
Make out to the slow chase, to the OJ Simpson slow chase?
Probably. Yeah, honestly, probably.
Personal. Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Her mom would like send up bagel sandwiches to us. They knew what was going on.
We were at the wedding of my sister's friend in Vermont.
Okay.
She went to Middlebury. So anyway, it was really pretty. And one of the guests at the wedding, because she was friends with him from high school, was Anderson Cooper.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, so anyway, he was there, and we like gave him a lift at one point. It was before CNN, obviously. It was he was probably on The Mole or something, I think.
What was The Mole?
It was like a reality show. He was the host of a show called The Mole. Anyway, really? So the Knicks were in the playoffs, and I was a huge Knicks fan. So we were at some restaurant, and I was watching the Knicks game, and then they it was like that Haiti football game where it got interrupted by Haiti. Did you hear about that? That was like, I forgot when. Anyway,
wait, who's
there was this? Now we're going down a rabbit hole. There was a Jets playoff game or a big Jets game where inexplicably the show switched from the football game at a really important moment to the movie Haiti on like NBC. It's famous. You should look it up.
That's hilarious. I mean, that's what I thought of when you said Heidi, but I was like, it can't be that.
No, it was. It's amazing. Crazy. And but anyway, they switched from the Knick game, and then they went to the slow chase, and we were all like, what the heck is going on? And then they did like a little split screen where they were like, they had the Knicks on the small square at the bottom right, and then they had the slow chase.
Amazing.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, this was the beginning of like the 24-hour news cycle and people becoming obsessed with watching the news all day long.
That's true.
I didn't realize, I think until more recently, that the reason they were having this slow chase was that he was supposedly holding a gun to his head, threatening to kill himself.
Yeah, he was with his friend.
It never made sense to me. I'm like, well, why are they just, following him this way? He's a criminal, a wanted criminal, like... or at least, a suspected criminal who was supposed to have shown up for his surrender to police and then didn't.
And with that in a way, that whole detail that he was like feeling suicidal, I mean, in a way, that's kind of damning too.
It is, and he also he wrote these suicide notes.
Did he? I didn't remember
he wrote,
that.
Like, 3 different versions of them.
I mean,
and he even said
so
something
guilty.
like, "Don't remember like." The worst day of your life, or don't judge me just by this, or something.
Oh boy! Wow, I had no idea. And the cops found those notes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
They I guess they were left at his house, maybe, and that they found them. I forget. They may not have been admissible for some reason, but anyway, just crazy.
Because he's rich and he had good lawyers.
Yeah, well, that's what's so crazy. He's rich.
It launched, what do you call them, those reality stars?
It did, the Kardashians.
The Kardashians, jeez.
Right.
And everybody in that trial became kind of famous. It's so weird how something like that changes all these people's lives.
I know.
And it changed the lives of actors who played them in that miniseries. Like those people who played them. So this one event just like
That's
changed the trajectory of everything. It's like Sliding Doors, that movie.
It very much is, and the poor guy who was murdered, Ron Goldman,
oh my God.
he just went to return some glasses that the woman's mother had
the
left.
House.
And Nicole's
the father was
left.
very like a brave guy and very outspoken and really sympathetic, and Jesus, so terrible. All right, well, so let's get into the topic of this episode. We wanted to talk about the Arizona Supreme Court ruling on, basically killing saying abortion's illegal in the state of Arizona. I almost said Alabama. Same thing, right?
Well, I mean, no, right? One is purple, at least.
Well, that's what we thought. It's funny, and I don't necessarily want to take us on a historical journey of Arizona, but I have been looking into Arizona a tiny bit, and there was some podcast I was listening to, and they were like, Arizona really isn't the progressive state you think it is. It's not independent like we think of John McCain, but it's apparently back in the gold rush years, there were a lot of Southerners, Confederates essentially, that went west and went to California and went to Arizona, and a lot of them became local politicians. So they really dictated the politics of Arizona and California. Apparently California had the most Confederate statues of any state for a while.
Isn't that
crazy? Before they tore them down. But anyway, also Arizona's Barry Goldwater, so they had slavery, and there were a lot of pro-slavery people in Arizona. It's not
did they actually have slavery?
I think they did. I really think they did. So it's not, we all think of Arizona as purple and progressive like New Mexico and Colorado.
Right. Well, that's a relatively new development, though, probably because of just the crazy growth of Phoenix. And when you have a city, even a city like that, I feel like you're bringing in people who are more likely to be liberal. So that might be part of it. That
maybe
there's been that shift. Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. And then also people from, other countries, I suppose, changes the politics. I'm going to play Kari Lake. Okay. She was a governor candidate, and now she's running for Senate. She's was a big MAGA person and very anti-abortion, but now that this law happened, she's backtracking because it's so bad politically.
Yes.
Okay, so let's listen to Kari Lake.
This total ban on abortion that the Arizona Supreme Court just ruled on is out of line with where the people of this state are. The issue is less about banning abortion and more about saving babies. I agree with President Trump. This is such a personal and private issue. I chose life, but I'm not every woman. I want to make sure that every woman who finds herself pregnant has more choices so that she can make that choice that I made. I agree with President Trump. We must have exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of a mother. We as American people don't agree on everything all of the time. But if you look at where the population is on this, a full ban on abortion is not where the people are. We knew that when this issue was sent back to the states, there would be debate, there would be argument, there would be teeth gnashing, but we're going to get through this. We are Americans. Heck, we're Arizonans. We're some of the toughest people out there. We're going to work through this, and on the other side, we're going to come out much better for it. They want this issue to bring down our country. They want Americans at each other's throats. And this issue has the ability to bring down our country or help save our country. And I want to help save our country. As your senator, I will oppose federal funding for abortion and federal banning of abortion. I'm not going to Washington, D.C. to impose federal restrictions on something that's already been sent back to the states. I'm going to Washington, D.C. to secure our borders, strengthen our families, and help President Trump make America great again.
Yeah, it's pretty wild given her past as strongly anti-choice, that she's going to come out in against this abortion ban.
And I mean, can I just, on a quick tangent, does she remind you of kind of like a Star Trek character?
Yes.
Is it really sexist of me to comment on her looks? Maybe a little.
That doesn't strike me as sexist.
Okay, but why does she look like a Star Trek character?
I think it must be the haircut and just the shape of her face.
Vibe. Yeah. It's weird. Maybe it's like a 70s vibe or something. Or was that a 60s show? 60s.
Oh, see, I'm picturing her in
Next Generation.
Next Generation.
Oh, with Patrick Stewart. You're right. She could be the captain of a ship.
She could be. So, see, she could be the captain. So, honestly, what you're saying is actually very feminist.
Why does she want to be a U.S. Senator when she could be the captain of a starship? That's much better.
I mean, someone should tell her. Someone should reach out.
We should call her. Anyway, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's so weird that she is changing her tune, but it makes sense, too, because she'll lose the election. And Trump is kind of doing the same thing. Trump appointed the conservative justices to the Supreme Court who overturned Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
But that was whatever, the Pandora's box, or like, what are they saying now? That the dog...
the dog catches the car.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like everybody wanted this thing of like, we're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, and they've been talking about it for decades. Yeah. Remember, like in the 80s, like I was around in the 80s. You're younger than me.
Yeah, so I remember it in the 90s more so, though. Yeah,
but the 80s were a big time for like targeting abortion doctors, and like it was like always a big deal of the religious right of like, we're going to overturn this thing, and they've been talking about it forever. And then Trump gets into power. You know, the Bushes, George W. and his father appointed like Clarence Thomas and John Roberts, and then Trump appointed three. So those, so that's how it happened. And then it happened, and now all hell is breaking loose, and it's kind of biting them in the butt.
I mean, it certainly has been hurting them at the ballot box, election after election. It seems like they don't know how to come at this, but I feel like Democrats seem to really be harnessing it for this election in particular. They just, I think Kamala Harris. You're right.
Sorry.
Kamala Harris. No. I thought of it after I said it, actually.
Yeah.
Kamala said that she was going to make a speech about the new student loan forgiveness plan that Biden just put into action in Arizona today, but she decided to change her mind and make the speech about abortion instead. And the big message is, it's Trump did this. I think that's the tagline, because there was also an ad that came out maybe a week ago or so, or something like that, and it's basically this woman who lost her baby to a miscarriage at the very end of her pregnancy.
And she could have died, right?
Right, she could have died, but they couldn't give her the abortion she needed, because I guess the baby was already dead, but they couldn't, something like that, but they couldn't take medical action because of the state's laws. So basically, she could have died. She got in much worse shape by the time they could actually take action. And now she's in a situation where she may not be able to have a baby in the future after losing this hope. So it's her sort of talking about the sadness of losing that baby. And then, you find out at the end how horribly she was hurt by the law. And it's pretty powerful. And at the end, the ad just ends with Trump did this.
Yeah, and that's a Biden ad. And I remember Kamala Harris also visited a Planned Parenthood. And, I mean, it's smart. Just they know that it's this issue is a winner. Most of the country, everybody calls it divisive. And it's a little misleading whenever the news says this is a divisive issue.
Yeah.
Because what does divisive mean? I mean, it's 70% of the country. That's not that divisive. I mean, it's divisive if it's one-on-one and you happen to be talking to someone who, is religious and believes it's murder.
I didn't realize it was that high up.
I think maybe it's not that high. Maybe it's 60.
I think it's...
I'm not sure why the other dog that lives upstairs started barking. Just about how Biden is using the issue. They know that know that it's a winner politically, and I think it also, the flip-flopping among Kari Lake and among Trump, like they're going back and forth. They're so anti-abortion, and now they're like freaking out. It shows that they're like political beings, that they're literally just like taking the issues that like will help them get elected.
Yes.
And when they see that this is not helping people get elected to be anti-abortion, they like are trying to moderate, and it just makes them look so kind of crass. And
it does, because I do think there's a certain amount of politicians changing due to public opinion changing. That is good.
Even Joe Biden has kind of changed his opinion a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm sure on gay marriage, anybody who's been a politician for as long as he has, I can't imagine he was pro-gay marriage. But I think he was also, he did change his opinion on abortion as well, because I think he was in favor of the Hyde Amendment that bans public funds being spent on abortion. And then when he was running for president, I think came out against the Hyde Amendment.
I think, like you say, like changing your opinion can be good, but I think when you change it so quickly and so kind of transparently, one of the interesting things is that like Donald Trump is from New York and he used to be a Democrat, and he's on tape saying he's very pro-choice, and then he's also on tape, from like the 80s, and then he's also on tape saying that women need to be punished for having an abortion, and it just looks really bad. And even Kari Lake, apparently she was a Democrat as well. She voted for Kari, supported Kari and Obama, and even interviewed Obama at one point when she was a news anchor. But it's just so odd, these people who kind of like she clearly wants to get in with Trump so she can be his running mate. And then, so that's why she was like so big MAGA, kind of crazy MAGA person, because she's like, I want to be his new Mike Pence. Right. And then, but then she was like, oh shoot, I'm too MAGA. I was so into like the anti-abortion stuff that now my state is doing stuff that's not going to let me be elected.
Yeah, when it's that insane, it really does come off as crazy, because it's just like it's flip-flopping. It's not like a politician sort of gradually changing as the as the country changes opinion too, evolving as many other people would. It's just this zigzag pattern of political
which way the wind's blowing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and she she got popular during COVID. She was very anti-COVID. Anti-COVID. She was very anti-masking.
Right. Pro-COVID.
Pro people getting COVID and dying from it. But I want to go back to that one thing we were talking about the dog catching the car.
Yeah.
Do you know what that even means? Because they say it on every news broadcast.
Well, yeah, right. Because I guess it's dogs just go after a car instinctually. They don't even know. Well, they don't even know why. Like the mailman's car or something.
Right. They start barking. It feels very suburban, where like dogs are sitting in the front lawn and then a car comes by.
Yeah.
And the dog's like, I'm gonna go get that car.
And then they catch it, and what do? There's nothing to do with it. It's not because it's not an animal that they can, kill and bring back to you, or another dog they can have sex with or something.
Right.
Why do dogs run after things?
You're getting very blue, Matt. Talking about dog love. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I always thought they meant that if the dog catches the car, that the dog is in big trouble because, he doesn't know what to do with it, but also he's in the middle of the road.
Oh, I never thought about that aspect.
Well, it could be very dangerous. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's a bad idea for a dog to chase a car. Or really, anything, unless it's a squirrel in an open field.
A squirrel?
Yeah.
No? Oh, if it's chasing one.
Yeah.
It will know. It will know. I think I can boil this down, kind of translating what you're saying. So you're saying that the dog won't know what to do with the car, but if it catches a squirrel, it can basically kill the squirrel, or play with it,
or at least the squirrel probably will get away. Or yeah, it could do that. I guess I also was going off of you talking about the street, and I meant more like in an open field, it's safer for the dog to run.
Right. So I think these people on network news who are bringing up dogs catching cars, I think the situation changes depending on where you live. And depending on the type of car. If it's like a Flintstones car, where your feet are powering the car,
that's reasonable.
I think the dog might be okay with catching that car.
Yeah. Well, because it might also be like the dog catches the car, they get into the front seat, they find a new owner, or just a friend.
Right.
That's...
Especially if its previous owner had been abusive or something.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure how this would all break down to using the metaphor.
What about a dog in Arizona? What about Kari Lake's dog?
If Kari Lake's dog caught a car, it probably wouldn't know what to do with it. It probably would decide, I don't even want to be here. I don't even like cars.
If Kari Lake saw her dog catch a car and have a trouble with it, then she might have had a better approach to this issue. Bringing it around, coming full circle.
It would be smart for political consultants to look over colloquial gems like a dog catching a car and just break it down for their candidate.
Yeah.
The meaning.
Well, I think the news people, yeah, I'd love a little more context there. I think
Right.
we've proven that people are throwing around that term and not giving the context and not really explaining it.
Well, and it also, honestly, it seems to me like Republicans might do this again. There's that case coming up in the Supreme Court about Chevron getting overturned. Do you know about this?
Chevron
is the decision, basically, that said that government agencies could have quite a bit of leeway on being specific about how regulations were actually implemented, rather than Congress really legislating all those details, right?
I see.
So now the Supreme Court may be overturning that, which would put a lot more power in Congress's hands. But how are they? They're not experts, is the big argument against it. So how are they going to have time to learn all that and legislate that? So it's going to be all these regulations might just fall apart and be left up to the states. Now, how that could end up being similar is that it seems like, the regulatory state is dead, right? And now, that may be true in some deep red state, but it also may be giving states like California or New York more leeway to enact stricter regulations.
Right.
So it might be another situation where, especially if those states are able to enact stricter regulations, then they might affect, say, car manufacturers, and that might speed up getting less damaging cars or any other type of regulation.
Except, maybe like all the states that are anti-regulation should make their own cars and their own plans so that they fall out of the sky and we don't have to have a door blow out of our jet when we're on a flight. And then the states that are we can get rid of bad regulations. That's probably never a bad idea, but it's anyway, I do think
where's the line?
We want our planes to fly, so it's
right,
the idea of giving Alabama the right to water down regulations on stuff, that worries me.
Yeah, that seems like an awful idea.
But I think the whole dog catching the car, sorry to go back to that.
That's kind of
what our show's about, honestly. other than OJ and abortion. But I do think that whole thing where Trump, they were going to have a bill signed about immigration.
Yeah.
And then Trump was like, we can't sign that bill because we need this as an issue. That was probably very smart of Trump. He was like, we don't want the dog to catch that car.
Yeah, I wonder, I think that happened back in like 2011 too. They had this bipartisan immigration bill that had a path to citizenship, had stronger border security, had all this stuff in it. And then Republicans were on board. It was really just like the psycho Republicans were just like, no. And there were fewer psycho Republicans back then, although still strong. But I don't know if that's an example of it. But
I don't know.
It's still of like some people like, oh yeah, we want this, we're on board. And then it's like, wait a minute, this destroys everything.
I just think when you're running for office, it's easy to say abortion is murder, and it's easy to like use that as a cudgel against Democrats and to say Democrats don't have God.
Yeah.
And that like works for a campaign in certain states. But once you overturn Roe v. Wade and throw it back to the states, like then real shit is happening. It's not just a campaign issue.
Right. People see the reality.
You have to deal with the reality. And it's like, it's not just about like terminating babies after 4 months. It's, abortions and IVF and birth control and all the crazies.
Yeah.
Like that's what Trump did anyway. He just empowered all the crazies, and these people are like, he's their hero. Like, he may not believe exactly what the crazies are doing, but he definitely empowered them to do all this shit. So it is his fault.
Right. Trump did this.
He did this.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm trying to think of if there are any things like that. Like, could the Democrats catch the car? But it seems,
I'm sure they have.
There's got to be something. I mean, there is, like, say, Obamacare, right? That was, to an extent, the Democrats achieving this huge goal that they had been pursuing for decades and decades, right?
Yeah.
So, and it did have negative consequences.
It felt like they caught the car at the beginning.
They did. They caught it, but they got in it, and then
they
kept going. And yes, the dog drove.
He's driving the car? What?
Yeah, that's what's different about this.
Who are you calling a dog?
I'm calling the Democrats. They went after that car, which is Obamacare. They got in the car. They kicked out the insurance companies.
Wow.
The dog drove. But because of Joe Lieberman, the insurance companies hung on to the bumper, but they kept driving. And now the insurance companies are on top of the car and reaching inside and about to get back in, at least into the back seat.
I'm impressed. This is a great metaphor.
So they're not done yet, but still, the dog is driving. Okay,
and the website. Remember, they screwed up the website.
Right. So there were negative.
Well, the website
things.
Maybe was the road, and the road was bumpy at the very beginning.
It was.
And then they kind of figured out how to fix the road, make the road a little better.
It's smoothed out. I mean, overall, I think Obamacare has been a huge success, but there are definitely arguments to say that it didn't look like it was going to be at the very beginning.
It's better than what existed. I mean,
certainly,
to be able to have the choice to have coverage is.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are so many benefits.
But that's another. I feel like that's not to cut you off, but I think that's another episode.
Oh yeah, but I guess just back to the car. I think it's just them. They did catch it, and maybe it was negative for a bit. But I think the difference is with Republicans. I feel like the negatives of totally restricting abortion is just gonna get worse. There's just gonna be more examples because women are, if they haven't died yet, they're going to. I mean,
these stories are going to continue to come out.
It's gonna get worse. Yeah.
And I just can't believe that people that are anti-abortion don't understand that, like, this type of care for women. And I know we're two white guys talking about this, but it's like, it's a lot more than just like terminating a pregnancy. Like it just comes, it's like for miscarriages, like people, I'm sure the anti-abortion people don't even think about miscarriages when they're talking about this crap.
I mean, yeah, or they just don't care. They just think, well, the woman will suffer, but the doctors can intervene at the last moment and save her life. But,
right.
And if she can't have children after that, well, that's God's will. I don't know.
Right. Well, and I think God, I keep wanting to say Alabama. In Arizona, this is based on a law that's 160 years old, and it actually does have an exemption for the life of the mother, but not rape or incest. And, that makes sense that a law 160 years old would not want to, stop a pregnancy of an incestuous or, relationship. I'm sure it was rampant.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, they're finding out that incest apparently is much more common than they initially thought.
All these,
you heard about this?
DNA. I just saw a headline. Maybe we could talk about that next week.
It's a fun topic.
It is.
I mean, it's just so depressing, really. It's just you would never think, but it's just. I mean,
Matt, my family's from small towns in Russia and Poland. And it's I don't know what went on in those towns. So
I don't know if that can show up. I don't know. I don't think they're counting that when they talk about. I think they're talking about
incest, more recent incest,
or just more recent and very close familial relationship.
I see.
I don't think
horrifying. There's so much stuff that goes on behind closed doors that people just don't talk about.
I mean, I think that's the realization that's come out with this. This is all. I think you mentioned it. This is through these DNA testing companies.
Right.
It becomes apparent when people are that closely genetically related.
Oh wow.
Anyway.
Well, that'll be a next week's show. I do think it should be our incest show. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I think the dog has caught the car, Matt. It's time to wrap up. I believe this has been our best show. I don't know. I always feel like that, but we got interrupted. But
right, we had to take a brief break.
I feel like it's been entertaining,
right,
and informational.
Right, and I don't know if our listeners will know what because we probably edited it a bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I got interrupted the first time because my daughter, who's taking a nap, was crying. So I got her back down, worked out, and then your dog
started barking,
upset. Yeah. So and dog George, was fine, chilled out. Yeah.
Yeah, we solved our issues and we didn't panic, and it all worked out.
No, success after success.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you next time, and we appreciate you joining us for another episode of Interesting Times.
See you next time.
Nice. I like that tag.